Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. This week we're going to be taking a look at Dali's latest offering, the Rubikore series, more specifically the Rubikore 6, the second highest floor stander within that range. If you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up on it, and again thank you all for the fantastic support on the recent uploads. We actually looked at the Bowers and Wilkins last week, and there are a couple of similarities between the Dali and the Bowers that we might discuss later on, but again thank you for the support. Let's get stuck into it. The Rubikore range coming in right in the middle of what Dali offer takes a lot of the features that are built into the core series of speakers, which are Dali's flagship reference range, and fine-tunes them down to a slightly lower level to make them more accessible in these lower down models. Obviously the Rubikore is still a very high level speaker. The 6 that we're looking at today coming in at £4,499. Kind of follows what Dali typically do in terms of their profile of speakers. They tend to be quite low profile in terms of floor standing speakers, and are usually a really bright, engaging sound. And we're going to be listening to them today and taking a look at exactly what they can offer and if they do follow that similar Dali tradition. So when we look at the design of the Rubikore 6 speakers themselves, the first thing that you're likely to notice are the tweeters and the drivers on the front. Now the drivers are made up of a two 6.5-inch double magnet design. One of those has actually got a clarity cone built into it as well, which really helps on the low end side of things. And on top of that, you've also got a really cool hybrid tweeter, something that's quite unique to the Dali range, to be fair. And what that does is combines a planar magnetic tweeter along with a low loss level dome as well, which again really helps when it comes to the clarity and the highs when you're listening to these. One thing that's never called into question when it comes to Dali speakers is the quality of the build of the speakers themselves. The wood veneer that they use, the finishes always look super clean. They're all hand built, assembled and tested in Denmark, where Dali are actually based themselves. And again, no questions at all when it comes to quality of the speakers. Interestingly, I'm normally someone that leans towards the black or wooden finishes of the speakers because they tend to be a little bit more neutral. We actually have the black ones on hand, as you've seen with some of the footage in the video. But unusually, I actually prefer the white finish in this case because I just think the way the tweeter contrasts with the rest of the speaker looks really nice. I'll try and put an image of that on the screen for you to look at. But yeah, the white finish looks really sleek. When we listen to the Rubikore 6s, we use the same Yamaha RN2000A network receiver that we used in last week's video when we were listening to the Bowers and Wilkins 704 and 705. That puts out 100 watts per channel, which should be more than enough to power the Dalis, which have got a recommended range of between 40 to 200 watts going into 4 ohms. There is a potential at that higher end that they could be a little bit greedy and a little bit needy in terms of drive, but the Yamaha did an absolutely fine job. Again, I mentioned last week that the Yamaha amplifiers in general and receivers is something that I am a big fan of, and again got plenty of meat there to get the most out of the speakers. One other thing that's worth mentioning really quickly actually when it comes to the design of the speakers is they actually come with some floor spokes. You get a little bracket that you fit to the bottom of the Rubikore 6. This isn't something that's new for Dali. You see this with a lot of their floor standers, but yeah, you fit this high quality bracket to the bottom, put the floor spokes on, and if you're using those on like a wooden floor, they'll be spot on, provided that little bit of extra isolation. But it's worth bearing in mind if you're using these on carpet, you might need to get some floor protectors to put on underneath these. They don't come with the speakers, but obviously are something that are pretty easy to get hold of. Before we actually listen to these, I've got to say I had really high hopes. We've listened to a lot of Dali over the last couple of years. The Rubicon 2, so the bookshelf variant of the range that the Rubicores are replacing, was something that I was an absolutely huge fan of. The low end that they produced for a bookshelf was far greater than you'd normally expect. And again, as I mentioned at the very start of the video, I believe Dali have got this kind of quite engaging, dynamic, bright sound, and I was really hoping that the Rubikore 6s were going to kind of replicate that and take it to the next level with it being a floor stander, and they did to a certain extent. But I've got to say the sound was actually a little bit different to what I've usually experienced with Dali. It was a lot more of a laid-back presentation. The separation was a lot more than you'd get from the previous bookshelves, but again, that is probably something that you'd expect with it being a floor stander. But yeah, they were quite different to other Dalis that I've listened to in the past. It's also worth touching upon the fact that we did actually listen to a little bit of vinyl when listening to these speakers as well, which might add a little bit to this opinion, might fuel the fire on that front, because I actually found them to be a little bit warmer than previous Dalis. They'd still had that dynamic driving sound that you'd expect from them, but like I say, it tended to be a little bit more rounded off. When we first plugged them in, the low end was also a little bit underwhelming, I've got to say, but the more we used them, the more that opened up, and then you kind of got a bit more of that traditional Dali sound that you'd expect. So again, that's something that potentially is worth considering if you do pick these up, if you do listen to them. Maybe they're the kind of speaker that does need a little bit of warming up before you get to the full potential. I mean, that's not unusual when you're unboxing a brand new fresh speaker, because when we listened to these, this was the first time they'd ever been plugged in, so there's always going to be a little bit of growing into the sound that the speakers have to do. But it was really prevalent with the Rubikore 6s. Again, the low end in particular at first almost sounded a little bit shallow because of the Yamaha we were using with them as well. You are able to fine tune that with the built-in EQ, and we ended up turning up the bass a little bit to try and get a bit more out of them, which helped a lot. But again, the more we used them, the less that was required, and the more traditional kind of Dali sound came through. Without doubt, for me, the area where the Rubikore 6s shine the most is the vocals and the instrumentals, and that's down to the hybrid ribbon tweeter that we mentioned just now. Now, those are absolutely outstanding. You get incredible accuracy, you get incredible clarity. It's got to be said that with these being at 4499, they're at a super competitive price point in the market. You've got things like the ProAct D20Rs, you've got the ATC SCM40s, you've got the Focal Aria Evo X's, which are all fantastic options and speakers that I absolutely love. But the Dalis do definitely bring something different to the table when you're comparing it to those other models. Perhaps they don't have the same level of detail as something like the ATCs. Perhaps they don't have the same level as warmth as something like the ProActs, but they kind of take elements of all of those speakers and put them into one. And that's something that I think a lot of people will appreciate. I think the laid back presentation I spoke about as well with the Rubikore 6s is something that can be seen as a big benefit. I mean, Dali again traditionally are quite bright, quite dynamic, and that is a good thing. But for a lot of people, I think I've mentioned this on previous videos as well, where a bright sound can often be seen as fatiguing. I don't find that to be the case. I mean, I think that's only the case if you're someone that's listening really clinically and perhaps trying to pick out instrumentals. If you're just casually listening, fatiguing rarely seems to be an issue. But because these are a bit more laid back, that does take away some of that potentially being an issue if you're someone that does find brightness fatiguing. As I say, it's certainly a warmer sound, and especially, I mean, when we listened to them with the vinyl, they were outstanding, and Dali and vinyl aren't two things that I'd often put together. Usually I'd think of more traditional speakers like perhaps the ProActs that we spoke about, maybe Wolfdales as well. They tend to be that kind of traditional sound that lends itself to vinyl. But Dali, I mean, these sounded fantastic. We listened to Dark Side of the Moon, which is obviously a massive audiophile favourite, and sounded absolutely sublime. I think to summarise, these are going to be a huge hit. A combination of this new laid-back kind of presentation that Dali have gone with on the Rubikore 6s, combined with the crystal clear vocals, really nice instrumentation. They're just a really musical, smooth speaker to listen to, which is always a good thing. Super nice. If you have listened to the Rubikore 6s or any of the other Rubikore speakers in the new range, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Again, thank you all for tuning in as always. Leave a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in next week's video.